Welcome to Bayanat, the heartbeat of tech in MENA. We bring you raw stories and sharp insights from the founders, investors, and leaders building the region's startup ecosystem. Today, we're doing a deep dive into Stride. They're really trying to shake up how people access private markets. And they started with something pretty interesting: global sports investment.
Yeah, it's a fascinating story, and honestly, it's almost a masterclass in turning what sounds like a regulatory nightmare into, well, a real competitive edge. Stride, founded by Hadi Halabi, is actually the first and only regulated private markets investment platform here in MENA.
First and only, really.
That's right. So our mission today is kind of unpack how they did it, not just the what, but the how, especially navigating that intense 18-month regulatory process to build a regulated fintech here, and that crucial pivot that really put them on the map.
Okay, let's get into Hadi Halabi's background then, because it's not your typical startup founder path, is it? It's pure high finance.
Not at all. I mean, he started at EY, did a master's in economics and strategy at Imperial College, top institution, then Deloitte here in Dubai, restructuring,
Right.
before jumping into M&A investment banking.
Mm-hmm.
So really intense stuff.
Definitely deep in the traditional finance world. But you mentioned he saw a paradox.
Yeah, for about 5 years, apparently he had this idea bubbling away. He noticed that his peers, professionals in finance, law, consulting, they had decent disposable income,
Okay.
but their investment options, pretty much limited to public stocks and bonds. All the really interesting private market stuff like VC and private equity was basically locked away unless you were an institution or, ultra high net worth.
Right, the access just wasn't there for even well-off professionals.
Exactly. So the thinking was, if he couldn't easily access these deals while working in the sector, then something was kind of broken.
Makes sense.
So the vision became, let's build a tech platform to sort of replicate what a VC or PE fund does, sourcing diligence, but digitize it, make it accessible for qualified investors globally.
And he brought in a co-founder with tech chops.
Crucial move. Imad Yahya, former Google engineer. They needed that tech backbone. Initially, the plan was pretty broad, just general private market deals.
Okay.
But then came the pivot. They realized they needed a hook, something really specific and attractive to start with.
And that hook was sports, which honestly feels like a really smart, maybe slightly left field move at first glance. Why sports when they started thinking tech and PE?
Well, it seems like it was a classic blue ocean strategy. They looked at the sports market, massive, global, culturally huge assets, often appreciating.
Yeah, stable in a way.
Right. But from an investment syndication angle, shockingly underdeveloped, especially for digital platforms. So focusing on sports immediately made Stride like the first digital sports investment platform in the world. That was their unique angle.
Okay, a great differentiator. But you need legitimacy, especially in finance. You mentioned that regulation piece earlier, 18 months. What made it so rigorous and tricky? Why is getting that MENA regulation right such a powerful advantage?
It's tough because you're building something that needs to onboard investors from basically anywhere, right? While sticking to very strict local DIFC rules, that means rock-solid AML, KYC checks, making sure money flows are transparent, meeting global compliance standards. And doing all that while structuring complex, illiquid private deals digitally, it's a lot.
Yeah, it sounds like juggling chainsaws while walking a tightrope.
Pretty much. But nailing that process gave them this huge moat. That regulatory approval is why they can say they're the first and only regulated platform like this in MENA. And globally, really the only ones letting people invest in clubs and teams in this specific regulated way. That badge of legitimacy is everything.
Which brings us to that early test case you mentioned, Watford FC. That sounds like a big deal. Championship team, $1 million allocation.
Yeah, they partnered with Republic on that one, secured the allocation, and the response was huge. Traffic spiked, tons of interest. It proved the appetite was there.
I sense a butt coming.
There is a but. It also delivered a really tough lesson. For reasons outside Stride's control, the whole co-investment structure fell apart later on.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Imagine you've just proven you can do this complex thing, get regulated, attract interest, and then you have to go back and refund every single investor. $1 million.
Ouch. That's a serious test for a young company.
Yeah.
Builds character, I guess.
Absolutely. A massive stress test. Hadi apparently said later it was incredibly difficult, but it kind of reinforced their commitment to doing things right, being transparent, and it proved their plumbing worked, handling fund movements even in reverse.
A strange silver lining. Did they recover quickly?
They did. They didn't let it derail them. They moved on, closed their first full deal soon after with a different European football club, then later had success with Epic Paddle in the US, showed resilience.
Okay, so regulation is the foundation.
Mm-hmm.
But how did they scale? You mentioned that classic startup problem,
Mm-hmm.
the chicken and egg of deals and capital. How did Heidi crack that?
Yeah, in the early days, it was just sheer personal effort, it sounds like. He was basically making two pitches constantly. To funds, trust me, I can bring you good capital. And to investors, trust me, we've got amazing deals you can't get elsewhere.
Bridging that gap on pure hustle and reputation initially.
Exactly, until the track record started building. But now, apparently, that dynamic has totally flipped. Deals are coming to Stride. They're hearing about potential allocations in things like NBA teams, maybe even Formula One.
Wow, okay. Big leagues?
And it's all driven by that scarcity factor. These kinds of sports assets, almost impossible for individuals to access, even wealthy ones. That exclusivity is the core appeal.
Right, and that shapes who invests. You said they aimed up market?
Deliberately, yeah. The regulations might allow tiny tickets like 500 AED, but they never went that low. Sports deals now start at $5,000 minimum.
Okay.
But the really striking number is the average investment. For a platform that could reach retail, the average is around $50,000 per investor.
$50,000 average. That's significant. That tells you something about the investor profile. These aren't casual punts.
No, it suggests a pretty sophisticated investor, someone who gets the asset class and the long-term view. And the business model reflects that value. It's a 5% upfront management fee just once, not yearly.
Right, not an annual drag.
And then a 15% carry on the profits when the investment exits. Pretty standard for PE-style performance fees.
Okay, let's talk risks. Two big ones in private sports deals. Liquidity, getting your money out, and what you called vanity ownership. How does Stride handle liquidity? These aren't stocks you can sell tomorrow.
No, definitely not. This is where their regulated structure is key again. They built a regulated secondary marketplace. It's clutter. Investors aren't technically buying a direct slice of the team itself. Instead, everyone investing in a specific deal is pooled into a DIFC-regulated entity, a special purpose vehicle, an SPV.
Okay, so a holding company for that specific investment. Why does that help liquidity?
Because it's much easier to trade shares in the SPV than it is to change the actual ownership registry of, say, a football club every time someone wants out. So after a lockup, usually 12 months, an investor can sell or transfer their stake in that SPV to another qualified investor on the Stride platform. It creates an exit option.
Ah, smart. Financial plumbing, as you say. And the second risk, vanity ownership. Rich people buying teams for fun, not profit.
They tackle that by almost exclusively doing co-investments alongside established private equity funds, these big PE players. They bring discipline, they demand clear metrics, operational improvements, a real plan for returns over, say, 5 years.
So the PE fund acts as a filter against just buying for prestige.
Exactly. It ensures the focus stays on profitability and a proper investment thesis, not just owning a cool team.
Beyond the finance, Hadi mentioned limited resources, money, and people were a huge challenge, second only to the regulatory maze. How they manage being lean.
He actually called it a disguised blessing, which is interesting. Because they didn't have tons of cash for big marketing splashes, they couldn't just spray and pray with digital ads.
Right.
It forced them to rely completely on word-of-mouth network effects, leveraging those tight professional circles you find in places like DIFC and ADGM.
So the product and the deals had to be good enough that users basically became their sales force.
Precisely. Kept their customer acquisition cost, CAC, effectively at zero. And that constraint meant they grew sustainably. The small team wasn't swamped with low-quality leads. They kind of naturally filtered for serious investors.
Very lean startup principles there.
Yeah.
Which then maybe freed them up for strategic moves, like acquiring Chorus 71. That seems like a big pivot into venture capital. Tell us about that.
Yeah, that was a really sharp move. Chorus 71 was already a well-known Abu Dhabi angel syndicate founded by Yusuf Salem, who's CFO of ADNOC Drilling, so serious credibility there.
Okay.
Chorus 71 had over 200 members, 50-plus deals done. Stride acquired 100% of it through a share swap. Instantly, they got the infrastructure, the investor base, the deal flow for a VC arm.
Wow, so they basically leapfrogged the whole initial building phase for VC. That became Stride 71.
Exactly. Rebranded as Stride 71, their venture capital arm. It operates slightly differently, lower minimums, maybe $1,000 to $3,000, aiming for higher volume, like one deal a month.
So it broadens their offering. Sports for one type of investor profile, VC for another.
Right. diversifies their platform, targets different appetites, but leverages the same core regulated infrastructure they'd already built. Very efficient.
And this acquisition was so significant, they actually paused a funding round.
Yeah, but they paused it after the Core 71 deal, wanting to see how that synergy played out before taking more dilution.
Disciplined. Shows confidence. So what's next? Any hints?
They might go back to fundraising later for bigger expansion plans. And Huddy hinted at some big news in the next 3 to 6 months, so we'll have to watch that space. But his final thought really comes back to the team. He stressed surrounding yourself with the right people, problem solvers, not problem seekers, especially when you're trying to build something impactful and lasting.
That really resonates. The focus on team, the disciplined growth, navigating that regulatory complexity. It feels like Stride's story shows how turning a massive barrier like regulation into your core strength can force you into a really sustainable, high-quality way of building a business here in MENA.
Absolutely. They proved that exclusivity, if you package it right and get the regulations sorted, is actually scalable in the digital age. It makes you wonder.
Yeah, it's next.
Yeah. What other super scarce, hard-to-access asset classes might get the Stride treatment? It's an interesting model.
A truly great deep dive.
For more stories like this, subscribe to Bionaut's newsletter and stay updated on the latest in MENA's tech and startup ecosystem.